Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex source material and distill it down to the clear, actionable insights you need to upgrade your understanding of the world. Today, we are tackling a really massive and persistent paradox. It's this disconnect between academic success and, well, financial freedom.
Hmm.
We see it all the time. You might be a highly educated professional, a brilliant engineer, a tenured professor, a sharp corporate attorney. You're earning an outstanding salary, but somehow you still feel that financial pressure.
Yeah, that feeling that you're just one major event away from, real stress.
Exactly. Or that your financial life is just this endless race. It proves that academic excellence and professional competence, while they're essential for a career, they don't automatically grant you financial intelligence.
That observation is the perfect starting point for our analysis today. We are diving deep into the core philosophies of financial education, drawing extensively from the works that really pioneered this kind of thinking.
So we're talking about the insights from Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the strategic blueprint of the cash flow quadrant.
Right. And these sources, they fundamentally challenge the conventional wisdom that society, and especially our educational institutions, have been telling us about money.
Okay, so our mission in this deep dive is clear then. We need to arm you, the listener, with a fundamental understanding of the difference in how the wealthy and the struggling middle class approach assets and liabilities.
And more than that, I think, we aim to map out the required shift in mindset and action, the stuff that allows you to move definitively toward genuine financial freedom and away from that relentless rat race.
It really is an exercise in unlearning, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the financial programming you likely received throughout your entire life, the advice from parents, from teachers, and we're examining why that programming, even though it's focused on security, often leads people straight into, the middle-class dependency cycle.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's set the scene with that initial conflict that really defines the entire philosophy. We're talking about the two father figures. On one side, you have the poor dad, the biological father, highly educated, PhD, but just constantly beset by financial worries, always in debt.
And on the other side, the rich dad, the best friend's father, a high school dropout, but a prolific entrepreneur and investor who became, well, completely financially independent.
A huge contrast.
A huge contrast. And the chasm between these two men wasn't in their innate intelligence, not at all. It was in the subject they chose to master. Schools, they focus intensely on scholastic and professional skills.
How to be a doctor, how to be an accountant, how to be a great employee.
Exactly. The skills needed to work for money. And look, that's essential, but it's incomplete.
And the missing piece is that financial skill, how to manage risk, how to invest, and this is the crucial part, how to have money work for you.
Right. And the source argues that this absence creates these highly educated people who are nonetheless operating with, quote, poor person's financial programming.
Let's look at the direct advice. Poor Dad's mindset was all about that employee path, security above everything else.
Oh, absolutely. His mantra was, go to school, study hard, get good grades. And when it came to money, he insisted, play it safe. Don't take risks. Your career is not the time for gambling.
He was obsessed with benefits, right?
Totally. He looked for that secure, guaranteed paycheck, pay raises tied to how long you've been there, strong retirement plans, medical benefits, and above all, job protection for life.
Like university tenure or a military retirement package?
Yes, exactly. He was a product of that industrial age mentality where the company or the government was expected to just take care of you. He really believed he was entitled to these protections because of his hard work and his education.
And this shaped the core professional skill he taught.
It did. He got the skills for writing an impressive resume, a document designed to sell yourself to find a good job and earn a predictable salary, which is valuable, but it keeps you reliant on an employer.
Okay, so then Rich Dad's philosophy. It was the absolute inversion of this.
Complete inversion. The entrepreneurial path, steeped in self-reliance. He actually encouraged open, transparent discussions about money and business, like right at the dinner table. He saw finance not as some taboo topic, but as a language you had to master.
So his core advice wasn't to avoid risk.
No, it was to master it, learn to manage risk. This meant you had to engage with financial processes, understand markets, and recognize that calculated risk-taking is essential for creating wealth.
And he was very critical of the entitlement mentality.
Fiercely critical. The belief that someone else, whether it's the government or your company, should take care of your financial needs just because you exist or have a degree. He thought that was a trap.
So instead of the resume, what was the skill he hammered home?
Rich Dad taught the boys how to write strong business and financial plans. And think about the difference. These are the documents that don't help you find a job. They're the plans you need to create a job or a system or a company for yourself and for others.
He taught them to be the system owner, not just a worker in the system.
You got it.
And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting and a little cynical. Rich Dad exposed them early on to a concept that challenges the very stability of our entire system.
The nature of currency itself.
Right. He taught them that money is, at the end of the day, an illusion.
He used this powerful analogy, comparing money to a carrot dangling for a donkey. It motivates action, sure, but its actual intrinsic value is basically zero.
So the value is only maintained by a fragile agreement.
Exactly. An illusion of confidence, propped up by two human emotions. Fear, the fear of poverty and greed, the desire for more. And this whole system, he said, is sustained by the ignorance of the masses who believe money is real and tangible.
This was incredibly prescient, especially given the historical context. Kiyosaki was exposed to the rumor that the U.S. might drop the gold standard.
And when it actually happened in the early 1970s, dollars suddenly ceased to be backed by anything tangible. No gold, no silver, just faith in the government.
Which was Rich Dad's point all along.
It was. If money is just paper, fiat currency, backed only by belief, then those who understand this fundamental truth, that money is essentially made up, they can manipulate the rules and create wealth far more effectively than those who religiously cling to the idea that money has to be earned through physical labor.
So the foundation of financial education isn't some complex calculus.
No. It's understanding that the accepted rules of the game are arbitrary, and they're designed to favor those who master the underlying system.
That understanding of the system leads us directly to the most fundamental lesson, the real difference between the financial path of the rich and, well, the path of everyone else.
And this is where a very simple distinction becomes incredibly powerful.
Rich Dad's teaching method relied on the KISS principle, right?
Keep it simple, stupid.
He did, because he understood that highly educated people, they tend to overthink things, they make them too complex, and they miss the core truth. So the definition had to be so simple that it forces you to look at the underlying cash flow, not the label on the item. Okay, so let's get to the simple, pure definition, the one that has to become the guide for every single financial decision you make.
An asset is something that puts money in my pocket.
And a liability is something that takes money out of my pocket.
That's it. Notice that this definition is completely agnostic about the item itself. A car could be an asset.
If it's an Uber and it's generating revenue.
Exactly. Or it's a liability if it's your personal car generating payments and insurance expenses. The only thing that matters is the direction of the cash flow.
And this isn't just about semantics. This is about real financial literacy. It's not enough to be literate in words. The real challenge is being able to read and understand the numbers.
Specifically, the flow of cash on a financial statement. The source argues that illiteracy, both in words and in numbers, is the absolute foundation of most financial struggles.
So when a savvy investor looks at a financial statement, the income statement, the balance sheet, they're not just seeing static numbers.
No, they're looking for the story, the plot. Where is the cash actually flowing? The rich acquire assets, which generate income that feeds the income statement. The poor and the middle class, however, spend their lives acquiring items they believe hold value, but which financially function as liabilities.
And this brings us to the lightning rod of the whole philosophy, the thing that challenges the foundational tenet of the American dream.
The house.
The house. Poor Dad's conventional wisdom, which is echoed by nearly every bank and financial planner, was our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset.
And Rich Dad's counterpoint was famously blunt. My house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble.
That's an emotional claim for a lot of people. Home ownership is tied to safety, community, pride.
It is. But we have to set that sentiment aside and just use the hard definition, cash flow.
Okay, so let's break it down. Let's look at the cash flow of a typical middle-class home purchase using the diagrams Kiyosaki popularized. You secure a mortgage? What happens immediately on your financial statements?
The purchase creates a massive liability, the mortgage on your balance sheet. And that liability immediately generates a stream of cash flow out of your financial system via your expense column.
So we're talking about the mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities.
Every single month, that outflow continues, regardless of whether the home's paper value goes up or down.
But wait, a lot of financial experts would argue that the home is still a good investment because of appreciation and, critically, the tax advantages. You can write off the mortgage interest, the property taxes. That reduces your tax burden. Surely that makes it an asset.
That is the common counterargument, and it's a powerful one. But the rich dad philosophy argues that these tax advantages are primarily subsidies. They're offered by the government to keep people focused on servicing the banks and thus remaining in the E&S quadrants.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, even with tax write-offs, the fundamental cash flow remains negative. Money is still flowing out of your pocket every single month. An asset, by definition, has to put money in your pocket.
So the tax benefit is just a reduction in the rate of outflow, not a creation of inflow.
Exactly. And furthermore, the benefit of that write-off decreases as the mortgage ages. In the early years, most of your payment is interest, which is deductible. In the later years, the payment shifts toward principal, which is not. If the government repealed the mortgage interest deduction tomorrow, people would instantly see their liability for what it is.
I see the distinction. And the pitfalls of home ownership, the sources argue, go way beyond just the monthly payments.
Absolutely. The source highlights several ways the house keeps people trapped. First, this perpetual debt trap. People rarely stay in one house long enough to pay it off completely.
They move up, get a new, bigger 30-year loan, and just reset the clock on the whole debt cycle.
Precisely. Second, the ancillary expenses. They constantly inflate. We hear this anecdote of Kiyosaki's wife's parents, who were financially sound in retirement until their property taxes suddenly shot up to $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
It forced them to sell and move because the house outgrew their budget.
That's a perfect example of a liability just acting like a slow financial drain, especially in retirement when your income stream shrinks.
And third, and this is the biggest one, the missed opportunity cost. Every single dollar you pour into a down payment, a new kitchen, or ongoing maintenance is capital that is tied up. It's prevented from being invested in income-producing assets.
Like rental properties, stocks, business ventures.
All of it. The house consumes capital that could have been used to build your asset column, and that locks you into the middle-class pattern.
So the argument isn't that owning your primary residence is always a bad thing.
Not at all.
It's that calling it your greatest asset is a profound financial mistake because it misdirects your capital and, more importantly, your attention.
Precisely. If your house is your largest investment, it means your focus is on consuming debt rather than producing income.
Okay, so now that we have the definitions clear, we have to see them in action. You said cash flow tells the story of a person's life.
It does. And we can distill almost all personal financial situations into three primary patterns or, stories.
Let's start with the simplest one, the poor person's pattern.
Okay. Income flows from a job, a salary, into the income box, and then it immediately flows right out through expenses.
Rent, food, clothing, utilities, transportation.
Right. And the balance sheet, both the asset and liability columns, remains virtually empty. It's just paycheck to paycheck, month after month.
Now, the middle-class pattern is much more insidious. This is what defines the rat race.
It is. The primary income source is still the job, the salary. But as that person climbs the professional ladder and their income rises, two negative things happen at the same time. First, their taxes rise. They get pushed into higher tax brackets.
And second, their expenses rise in proportion to that salary increase. This is that classic lifestyle creep.
And the middle class buys bigger liabilities. They start with a large mortgage for the dream home, then the car loans for the three-car garage, then the boat loans, expensive furniture, school loans. The cash flow arrow flows from income, but instead of just covering basic expenses, it flows down to cover the constantly rising costs of all the liabilities they've acquired.
So the liability side of their balance sheet just balloons, and it forces them to keep working harder just to service all that debt.
It's a debt loop. Any increased income just funds increased consumption and debt service. This is the rat race. Running faster on the treadmill only to find the treadmill speeds up.
This highlights a really sobering reality of who the middle class actually works for. They think they're working for themselves or their family, but the cash flow shows they're primarily working hard for three different entities.
That's a crucial insight. First, they work for the company that pays their salary. Second, they work for the government, who takes taxes, which, for the middle class, is often their single largest expense, sometimes before they even see the money.
And third,
they work for the bank, which collects the mortgage interest, car payments, and credit card debt. Their increased effort benefits everyone except their own asset column.
and the financial tragedy is that they are so highly incentivized to keep that machine running. They can't afford to stop. Because if the income stops, the liabilities, the mortgage, the car payment, the insurance, they don't.
Now contrast that entirely with the rich person's pattern. Their income comes primarily from their assets.
So we're talking about rental income from real estate, dividends from stocks, interest from notes, royalties from intellectual property.
All of it. And the cash flow loop for the rich is fundamentally different. Income from these assets flows into the income box. It easily covers all their necessary expenses, including taxes and any business debt service.
And here's the magic part.
Here's the magic.
Huh.
The remaining balance isn't spent on consumption. It is systematically and continuously reinvested right back into the asset column.
So the asset column, the real estate, the stocks, bonds, businesses, intellectual property, it just grows larger.
Which in turn generates even more income, creating this virtuous accelerating loop. This is precisely why, financially, the rich get richer.
So this means if you want financial security, the most important priority is to mind your own business. And this doesn't mean quit your day job tomorrow. It means recognizing that your true business revolves around building that asset column, no matter what your current job title is. You have to work to acquire assets that earn money, not just work to earn money that disappears into liabilities.
This also dictates the timing of consumption and luxuries. The rich buy luxuries last. They set a financial rule. Wait until the asset column generates enough passive income to pay for the luxury, completely debt-free.
The story about the Mercedes comes to mind.
Exactly. Kiyosaki's wife wanted a Mercedes. Instead of borrowing money, they worked to grow their real estate portfolio until the passive income from those properties was enough to purchase the car outright. The car was a reward for their financial intelligence.
Whereas the middle class buys the luxury first. The big house, the new car, often on credit, using their own sweat and future earnings. That item isn't a reward. It becomes a financial burden they resent because it chains them to the rat race.
It's the difference between using debt to buy things and using the cash flow your assets generated to buy things. A whole different world.
Okay, we've discussed the flow of cash, so now let's look at the source of that cash. This brings us to the cash flow quadrant, which is the organizational model for understanding where people sit financially, the ESBI model.
Right. This model tells us the system from which a person derives their income. And understanding the system is vital because each quadrant operates under a completely different set of rules.
Different rules for taxes, for required skills, for financial security.
Everything. So on the left side, we have the E and S quadrants. E is for employee. You have a job. You rely on a paycheck. Your security comes from having a contract.
And S is for small business or self-employed. These are highly skilled people, doctors, consultants, realtors, shop owners.
And the key distinction for the S quadrant is that they own a job. If they stop working, the income stops. They are the system.
Down the right side, you have where financial freedom lives, B for big business.
These individuals own a genuine system that works without their direct physical presence. The source often defines this as having 500 or more employees, which means the system is self-sustaining and it's scalable.
And finally, I for investor.
These are the people who have their money working for them. They generate income from assets, requiring zero physical effort from themselves.
The difference between the two sides is often illustrated with that analogy of the bucket hauler versus the pipeline builder.
Yes, the contract to provide water to the village.
Yeah.
Ed, representing the ES side, was diligent. He hauled buckets of water from the lake every single day. He earned money immediately, but his income was directly tied to his effort.
If he got sick or injured or just wanted a vacation.
The flow of money stopped
instantly.
He was exchanging his time for money.
And then there's Bill, representing the BI side. He spent the first few years building a pipeline system.
Right. It was non-revenue generating work at first. He was constantly criticized by Ed for working so hard but not getting paid. But once that pipeline was built, the water flowed continuously, granting him financial freedom.
He created a scalable system.
A system that provided continuous cash flow, regardless of whether he showed up to the lake or not.
And this distinction highlights a central critique in the source material, that our traditional schooling prepares students almost exclusively for the E and S quadrants.
The model of the industrial age. But in the information age, the B's and I's are rewarded with exponentially greater opportunities because of leverage and scalability. To truly thrive, a person needs financial intelligence that covers all four quadrants.
Let's look at the ultimate example of this BI mindset in action, the Ray Kroc McDonald's story. This goes so far beyond just selling hamburgers.
It's the perfect pivot from the S quadrant, which is professional skill, to the BI quadrant, which is system focus. When Ray Kroc addressed MBA students and was asked what business he was in, they all confidently shouted hamburgers.
And he said,
"My business is real estate."
That reframes absolutely everything. He saw that while the hamburgers were the product and the franchise was the system, that's the B quadrant, the true long-term asset was the land under the franchises.
He structured the business so that McDonald's Corp became one of the largest real estate holders in the world. He was focused on the asset column, the I quadrant, not the day-to-day operation, the S quadrant.
And this emphasis on the system brings us to the three types of income, which clearly delineate these quadrants.
Right. We have ordinary earned income. This is the money you work for in the ES quadrants. It's the most highly taxed income,
Then you have passive income.
usually derived from real estate investments,
Uh-huh.
and then portfolio income, which is derived from paper assets like stocks, bonds, and notes.
So the entire roadmap to financial freedom, to escaping the rat race, is built around one single act.
The deliberate, methodical conversion of that highly taxed ordinary earned income into passive and/or portfolio income. That shift means your assets are funding your life, not your physical labor.
And this is driven heavily by the mechanism of the law. This is one of the four pillars of financial IQ we'll get into.
Right. Corporations allow B's and I's to pay themselves after deducting expenses, whereas E's and S's pay expenses after the government has already taken its taxes. This difference in timing and structure is foundational to the wealth gap.
Okay, so technical knowledge is essential, but the sources are very clear. It's not the biggest hurdle. A lot of people who are technically capable, even those who get the cash flow concept, still fail to build wealth.
The greatest challenges are internal, they're emotional.
So let's tackle the 5 major psychological roadblocks that keep people stuck. Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
This is where we shift from theory into behavior. First, fear. Specifically, the fear of losing money. It's a profound and common phobia. It's almost like a biological aversion. For someone who has worked so diligently to acquire money, the thought of losing it in an investment is, well, it's paralyzing.
And that fear drives 2 major problematic behaviors. First is just the avoidance of risk altogether.
Right. And Rich Dad's solution was practical. If you hate risk and worry, start early. Starting small lets you learn the mechanics of investing with small, manageable losses. It trains your mind to deal with failure.
And the second thing fear drives people toward is this misguided goal of balance.
Yes. People aim to play not to lose by maintaining a safe, diversified, balanced portfolio CDs, municipal bonds, low-yield investments. The source argues that if you are currently poor or middle class and you want to get rich, you must temporarily be focused, not balanced.
That seems really counterintuitive. We're constantly told to diversify and balance our risk. What's the argument against balance?
The analogy is that balanced people go nowhere. They just stay stuck in the middle. Look at the people who created massive wealth quickly. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Thomas Edison. They were intensely focused. They poured all their resources and energy into 1 or 2 specific high-potential baskets.
The middle-class strategy is many small eggs in many baskets.
And the wealth-building strategy is to put a lot of eggs in a few baskets and then guard those baskets fanatically. Laser focus.
It's the difference between protecting what you have versus aggressively going after what you want. And part of that courage comes from embracing failure.
Exactly. Rich Dad emphasized what he called the Texas attitude. Winners are not afraid of losing. Losers are terrified of it. Failures is just part of the price of progress. Think of children learning to walk. They fall down hundreds of times. They don't stop walking because they failed.
And the source notes that Texans brag when they lose and shout, "Remember the Alamo," to turn a defeat into massive motivation.
You have to cultivate that tenacity, learn from the loss, and press on.
Okay, next up is cynicism, what the source calls the Chicken Little effect. This is that inner voice or the external noise constantly fueling doubt.
Cynicism is easy and it's safe. It lets you feel superior because you predicted failure without ever having to risk anything yourself. The cynic's primary tool is to criticize rather than analyze.
The classic example being the potential real estate investor who says, "I don't want to fix toilets."
Exactly. They're focusing their precious mental energy on a minor inconvenience rather than analyzing the whole wealth-generating system. They let their I don't wants prevent them from achieving their I wants. The convenience of avoiding the risk is more important than the pursuit of freedom.
And that cynical noise is just amplified today by media and social platforms constantly screaming about market doom.
It is, but savvy investors know that the seemingly worst of times, crashes, corrections, recessions, are actually the best times to make money. Because the cynics and the fearful are immobilized, allowing those with courage to pick up assets at bargain prices.
The advice is to fry the inner chicken.
Look at Colonel Sanders, turned down over 1,000 times before succeeding. He chose tenacity over cynicism.
The third roadblock is one that a lot of people don't even realize they suffer from: laziness, and this isn't sleeping on the couch.
No, this is laziness by staying busy. It's a sophisticated form of emotional avoidance. People use constant work, relentless scheduling, excessive consumption of entertainment, or constant shopping as a way to avoid facing important, painful, personal, or financial problems.
So they're physically active but financially passive. They're too busy earning money to actually manage money.
Right. And there's also the emotional dimension of guilt trip laziness.
Yeah.
This is sacrificing your own necessary financial future out of misplaced guilt.
The anecdote of the stone-broke neighbor who fills his garage with every new toy for his kids because he doesn't want them to know the feeling of want.
And he sacrifices his retirement and college savings out of guilt, ensuring future poverty for himself. Rich Dad was quite hardline here. He suggested guilt is worse than greed because, quote, guilt robs the body of its soul.
His point was, you have to secure your own financial foundation first.
So that you can later provide a secure platform for others, free from that emotional coercion.
Okay, moving on. The fourth obstacle is about our routines. Bad habits. Our lives are not reflections of our education, but of our ingrained daily habits. Which brings us to that powerful rule from the richest man in Babylon.
Pay yourself first.
A simple phrase, but a revolutionary habit.
It's entirely contrary to how the middle class operates. Most people, they get their paycheck, they pay taxes, they pay the rent, the mortgage, the credit cards, and then if there's anything left over, then they pay themselves by putting it in savings. They pay themselves last.
The rich dad strategy dictates that money must be allocated to the asset column first, before the monthly expenses are even touched.
If you look at the cash flow diagram of someone who truly does this, the cash moves from income to assets, and then the remaining balance, often a smaller pool, is used to cover the expenses.
And here's the controversial part of the rich dad method. He used the pressure of outstanding bills as a motivator.
He did. He paid himself and invested first, leaving himself short for the bills. This financial pressure then forced him to be financially creative, astute, and active in the market to cover the shortfall. He refused to give in to the pressure of creditors. It taught him discipline.
But the foundational rule here is crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Don't get into consumer debt in the first place, or this high-pressure strategy backfires instantly.
It's a high-stakes psychological game. It relies on the internal toughness to resist the constant demands of the world bill collectors, tax collectors. If you're internally weak, you pay them first. If you're financially disciplined, you pay yourself first.
And finally, the fifth obstacle, arrogance. The tool used to hide ignorance. The governing rule here is, what I know makes me money, what I don't know loses me money.
Arrogance is deadly because it makes people believe that what they don't know is simply unimportant, or they pretend to understand complex financial instruments when they really, really don't.
It's so common among people in the financial industry who are just spouting off sales pitches, instead of offering genuine knowledge. When you recognize ignorance in a subject, say tax law or commercial real estate valuation, the only solution is immediate action.
Humility, self-education, or finding an expert mentor.
And that mentor has to be someone who actually owns the type of asset you want to acquire, not just someone who gets paid to manage or advise on it. Hiding ignorance with arrogance is a guaranteed way to suffer massive, painful losses.
Okay, we've decoded the definitions and identified the internal enemies that stop progress. So what does this all mean for action? The next step is building what the source calls a robust financial IQ, which isn't just one skill, but a powerful synergy of technical abilities.
Financial IQ is the combination of 4 main technical skills, and when they're combined, they amplify your overall wealth potential far beyond just the sum of the parts.
The first is accounting, or financial literacy. This is the fundamental ability to read the numbers, to understand the financial statement, to understand the story the cash flow is telling. If you can't read it, you're just guessing.
The second is investing the science of making money. This involves strategy, calculating returns, understanding risk, knowing how to make capital grow.
Third is understanding markets, the science of supply and demand. This is about timing and opportunity. Kiyosaki emphasizes you have to seize opportunities when the market is crashing or correcting. Consumers run away, investors run toward the sales.
And the fourth is the law and awareness of corporate, state, and federal regulations. And this is arguably the most crucial technical skill for the B&I quadrants, because understanding the tax code allows you to legally operate with vastly superior financial advantages compared to an E or an S.
Let's spend some time on this because this is where the mechanics of getting rich really diverge from staying middle class. How exactly does a corporation provide such a huge advantage?
Well, as an employee, an E, your cash flow runs. Income, then government takes taxes, then you pay your expenses. You are taxed on your gross income first.
Okay. And a corporation.
The corporation uses the formula. Income, then expenses, then government takes taxes.
So a corporate owner can take specific, legitimate expenses, a car lease, business lunches, travel, office supplies, certain education, and deduct them before the government calculates their taxable income?
Precisely. They are legally allowed to spend money on qualified business expenses with pre-tax dollars. This essentially turns expenses into necessities that also reduce their tax liability. The employee buys a car with money that has already been taxed once, sometimes twice. The corporate owner buys the car with pre-tax dollars as a business deduction.
The mechanism is so powerful that ignoring it is, as the source argues, actively choosing to remain in a less financially advantageous position.
It is. That is the synergy of financial IQ in action. You use accounting to track cash flow, investing to acquire assets, market knowledge to time the purchases, and law to protect and leverage the gains.
And here's another key insight for success. Many talented people, brilliant mechanics, educated professionals, amazing artists, are often just one skill away from great wealth.
They've mastered their professional skill, the S quadrant, but they lack the crucial management and communication skills they need to scale into the B quadrant.
And that missing skill is often sales and marketing.
It almost always is. The ability to sell, communicate, negotiate, and handle public relations is the foundational skill of personal success. It's necessary to attract investors, customers, partners. The great writer is not the best writing author, but the best-selling author. You have to learn how to communicate the value of your asset or your system.
Success isn't just about being smart, it's about communication. So let's wrap up with the specific actionable steps the source material advises for moving into that BI mindset.
First, you must develop a strong reason. Why? This needs to be a deep emotional purpose. If your why is weak, just, I want more money, you will quit when the setbacks hit.
You need a powerful set of, I don't want to work for a boss. I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck.
And I want financial freedom by age 50. I want to travel the world. That emotional intensity is the fuel for tenacity. Kiyosaki himself wanted to be financially free by 40. It took him until 47. But that fierce desire kept him focused through years of failure and risk.
Second, you have to make lots of offers. Finding great deals, whether it's in real estate or stocks, is exactly like dating. You have to go out into the market, talk to a lot of people, and make offers, knowing that most will be rejected.
The source advises making even ridiculous offers, like half the asking price. You don't know the right price until you have a second party willing to negotiate. And in real estate, always use escape clauses or subject to contingencies.
Legal mechanisms that let you back out of a deal if inspection or financing doesn't work out.
It keeps you in control and manages your risk, even while you're being aggressive with your offers.
Third, shop for bargains in all markets. We established this. Consumers run toward the supermarket when groceries are on sale, but they flee the stock market when it's on sale.
The savvy investor rushes in when prices are low. This rule is absolute. Profit is made in the buying, not the selling. You make your money when you buy assets cheap, not when you sell them expensively.
Fourth, master the power of getting something for nothing. The Indian giver concept.
This is a sophisticated investor mentality. It prioritizes recovering your initial investment capital as quickly as you can. Once that initial cash is back in your pocket, the remaining asset, whether it's a portfolio of stocks or a piece of real estate, is owned for free.
Okay, we have to break down that highly detailed example of the $75,000 foreclosure house because this perfectly illustrates what you called ROI infinity. How exactly did he structure that zero cash deal?
He found a foreclosure that was selling for $20,000. He immediately went to a friend and borrowed $2,000 for 90 days as a down payment. Then he quickly ran an ad and found a new buyer for $60,000. But he structured the sale with no money down for the new buyer.
And he took back a promissory note for $40,000 from that buyer.
Exactly. He essentially flipped the liability, the mortgage, and simultaneously created an asset, the note. He then instantly repaid his friend the $2,000 he borrowed.
So the asset he created, that $40,000 promissory note, cost him zero of his own long-term capital.
He created a significant income stream without ever putting in his own cash. His return on investment was effectively infinite, or ROI infinity. This is the power of using financial intelligence and other people's money and systems, rather than just hard labor.
Finally, use desire to inspire. Instead of impulsively borrowing money to buy that luxury item you crave, use that desire, say, for a Porsche or a fantastic vacation, to motivate the creation of a new asset first.
Right. Focus on the asset column. Let the asset generate the cash flow, and then use that passive income to buy the luxury. The key is to make the asset pay for the consumption. The initial road of building assets is hard, but it makes the long-term financial life easy.
While the easy road of immediate borrowing for consumption becomes hard in the long term because it shackles you to debt, it really hammers home that the greatest asset we all possess is our mind. If you train it to think like an investor, it can create enormous, instantaneous wealth, especially in this information age where systems and leverage dominate everything.
You, the listener, you've been given two great gifts, your mind and your time. It is completely up to you to determine your destiny. Every day, with every single dollar that enters your hand, you hold the power to choose your future.
You can choose to spend that dollar foolishly, spend it on liabilities.
Or you can invest it in your mind in your asset column.
The ultimate choice is yours. It's about focusing your efforts on that asset column, continually educating yourself, and applying that financial knowledge relentlessly. Stop working for money. Start building assets that work for you.
And here is a final provocative thought that ties purpose and wealth together perfectly. Kiyosaki's sister chose a path of spiritual service as a Buddhist nun, a path that pays nothing in salary. Yet, she is not poor.
How so?
Because she took the time to develop her financial intelligence. She owns rental property and investments in gold and silver. This shows that dedicating your life to purpose, whether it's teaching, spiritual service, or art, does not require you to take a vow of poverty.
Provided you simultaneously develop a strong, cash-flowing asset column.
You can, in fact, choose both purpose and wealth.